Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Chris, joined tonight by Mr. Mickey Plumley. Mickey, welcome into the show. Welcome everybody here on NRN, the New River Network, and the Voice College Football. Appreciate everybody for tuning in and joining us. Frank is dealing with some family obligations tonight, so we want to send him some good vibes, and hope all is going well with him. He had some company coming in, and I face some of the same dilemmas myself sometimes, where do you do the show or do you face the chagrin of wife and family? And usually it's you just go ahead and go with the wife and family and forego the show. So Mickey, taking the top spot tonight. Welcome in, and it's good to see you, buddy.
Hey, it's good to be here, Greg. We were just talking before the show started there about all this snow and wet, rainy weather here in West Virginia, while Frank's, down there entertaining company in the sunny confines of his Florida winter home.
Yeah, down in his Florida mansion.
So
and,
I'm sure he'll pull up the replay in the archive and give us a grade on how we do this tonight.
Yeah, I feel bad for him down there in sunny Florida. I know I got tickled a little earlier tonight. My son called and he asked what the weather was doing. I said, well, it's raining right now. It's about 35, cold, nasty, supposed to get a big snow, and supposed to keep snowing right on through the weekend, be colder than heck next week. And he said, I come out this morning. He said, I thought I was freezing. He said, it was cold. And I said, well, how cold was it? He said, well, it got down to 54. And I'm like, man, poor guy.
Oh,
to be down south.
Your heart bleeds for him, huh?
Yeah, he's down in Rock Hill, so a little bit warmer down there. Got several things to talk about tonight. Our guest, Cliff Hill, will be with us a little bit later on. He had some things to deal with this evening after the news broke of Michigan firing their head coach, player commitments and that sort of thing. Cliff deals a lot with helping kids with NIL and getting them placed and getting them settled in different schools and that sort of thing. And I'm sure he had a few recruits heading to Michigan, and I know families and whatnot had plenty of questions about that. So he's been tied up this evening. So, but he said he should be able to join us here in just a little bit. So we'll look forward to having him. We've had him on the show a couple times, and always does a great job. And he's really in the know on the recruiting end of things and players coming and going and that sort of thing. And I think with Rich Rodriguez and what's going on in Morgantown, he's got plenty to talk about there. So we'll get his thoughts on what's happening up in Morgantown. I think Mickey and you probably agree that he's going to be pleasantly surprised, I think, with how things are shaping up.
Yep, I think so. No doubt about it. So far, so good. We had the 20th best pre-signing date recruitment in the history of the school. And 20th best in the country. And I think first in the Big 12, right, Greg?
Yeah, I think they finally eclipsed that mark, went up first in the Big 12 and 20th in the country, like you said, the best ranking since they've ranked that we've had in our history. So there's the graphic. If you can see it, there's the graphic on the team recruitment, the rankings, and it's a pleasant surprise. It's nice to see that, and it's I don't know, Mickey. I get a little perplexed when I see these type of things. I'm like, man, what do we sell? I mean, I know as a Mountaineer and a Mountaineer fan, we have a great state, great people, great following. Everybody loves the Mountaineers here, and I know all that. But in today's climate, it's all about dollars and cents, and I get a little perplexed about seeing these high rankings as far as recruiting is concerned. When I think it comes down to money, because I really don't think that we have, the endless funnel of money that some of these places have. And, for us to be able to bring in, this many top level guys, You just wonder, is there money coming in from somewhere, or are we missing something? But anyway, we'll gladly take it. So I'm excited about it, and I know Cliff, it's going to be fun to talk to him about it. But it makes you wonder a little bit, though, about this money situation and our situation, and how we're dragging these guys in. I'm happy we are. Don't get me wrong. I just wonder,
Yep.
How it's happening.
Well, yeah, it does. That graphic that Darren had up there a moment ago, it's really interesting to me that although we finished first in the Big 12 there, our average NIL is about $21,000. Texas Tech is 5 times that amount at
Yeah.
112,000, which, what it tells me, Greg, is that kids today, I mean, as motivated as everyone is by money, I think a lot of kids today are still influenced by the quality and the character of the coaches that are recruiting them. I mean, that was a big determinant for me back then in the 60s, an opportunity to play for a guy like Jim Carlin or Bobby Bowden. And I think, I think that Rich Rod, kind of carries that standard forward. And when kids meet him, they see an opportunity to play for a guy that's had a lot of success in a lot of different places. And plus, I think also kind of the undiscussed factor here is, most of our recruits are 3-star. We did get a few 4-star this year. But I think the 3-star athlete is aware of the fact that they can get coached up by Rich Rod and his staff, and they can better themselves, not only as a player, but also, improve their chances, hopefully, to get drafted in the NFL. What do you think about that philosophy?
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think, when you look at these average, on the NILs, a lot of people misinterpret that, and they'll, they see, well, so and so spending this much and so spending that much. But when you look at it as an average, if you're averaging 120,000 per player, if you give one player, $2 million, then that average gets thin. The average is still the same, but it's awful thin when you get from the middle down. And so, maybe it's, we look at it maybe incorrectly just a little bit, that the NIL, is not a huge amount for, obviously it's not a huge amount for everyone. And a lot of these guys want to play in the NFL, and they want to get developed, and they want to learn. And like you said, Rich Rodriguez has a great history as far as developing players, and he's had some great players over the years. He obviously knows how to coach. He's liked by players apparently, selling the school. If kids come to, I've seen where one, I can't remember the kid's name, but he was at the Pitt game, and was just no, I'm sorry, it was the TCU game. Even though we lost the game, the atmosphere was incredible. You were there, and he talked about the atmosphere and the fans, and that was a determining factor in his decision. So, I think all that plays into it, and it's not just the money. I think the money has a role, and obviously we'll have a bigger role unless it's reined in a little bit. But at the same time, I still think there's something to be said for programs, history, coaching, that sort of thing. And also, too, another thing that gets overlooked sometimes, I think, is your guys that are doing that recruiting, your assistant coaches. We've got some guys that have some pretty good name recognition, with Pat White and Noel Devine, people like that, and have connections, I'm sure. And, that helps too. And I had said, Frank and I were talking one night on a show about Coach Prime, and man, that may have been Shane. We were talking about it, but I said, these young kids today, My kids wouldn't have known who Coach Prime was unless I told them. And so, you wonder how much influence that has. But if you say Pat White, for example, he's recent enough that a lot of them can remember him. And
Yep.
played little in the NFL, was an All American quarterback. A guy may want to come and play for that just because of who he is. So there's a lot of different factors I think that go into this recruiting, and they keep this up, then things are going to turn around pretty quickly. And I felt strongly that Rich knows what he has to do. He knows the needs. He knows where he's got to fill in. He also knows, and he said this in his press conference the other day, there's going to be some tough decisions that have to be made with players that are there now. In other words, for lack of better terms, tell them to hit the road, and so he's going to be moving people out as well as bringing people in. So, he knows, and I have faith that he's going to do just fine with that. And this is a positive start, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you get surprised too from the players' direction and their interests as well. I was really surprised to see that Jaheim White and
Yeah.
Dior both have entered the portal. Of course, Nico announced a long time ago that he's going to be in the portal as well. And there's an offensive lineman, although I think he was a backup one that just declared today, he's entering the portal too. So, you think you know what you have in terms of a roster, but it's way too early. That early signing day was last week, and then I think there's another one January the 2nd, and the portal opens up. So there's still a lot more to happen, a lot more to take place, a lot more to come in, and a lot more to leave.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. It's nature of the game. That's the game. And you wonder about a player like Jaheim White, for example. That was a pretty significant injury he had, and it just makes you wonder if maybe it wasn't told. Listen, that's hard to come back from. We've got other folks that we feel like can step in and play the role. Can't guarantee you anything next year. You just wonder if maybe that don't play a role in some of that. And I know, and I've heard. I don't know. I can't say that. I have heard that Coach Rodriguez is very good about telling a player, "Hey, I don't think you fit into our system. I don't think you're going to play a lot here, but I will help you get somewhere where you can get your NIL and get some playing time and all that." So I've heard that he's a proponent of doing that, of the kids and helping them get places. So it's probably it's not always. I don't think people look at it, I think, and say, he must be upset because of playing time, or he must not be getting enough money. So I don't think it's always that. I think it's, we can find a place for you where you can go in and you can play and show your talents and develop and get better, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not always a totally negative thing. You hate to lose any players. I think last year, we lost a ton of good players. Of course, that was a coaching change and that sort of thing. And that's going to happen when you have that. I think that was a little bit unusual. It's funny, Mickey. I watch these games on Saturdays, and I see all these teams play, and I see all these former Mountaineers. I'm like, dang, he played for us.
yeah.
That guy from Miami tearing it up down there at defensive lineman. Like that going.
Yeah.
We had some players. So but that's not going to happen every year. We're going to lose some. And we're going to get something, but that's just the nature of the beast now. It's just the way it's going to be. And, I don't know. And I know one thing, Mick, I'm glad I don't coach. I don't know that I can, that would drive me crazy. You put your heart and soul into a kid and start developing, you see some progress, and boom, he's up and going somewhere else. And it's just, I don't know how they do it. And I'm sure that's why a lot of them gotten out of it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Greg. No question about that. Based upon what's happened so far in the off season here in terms of recruiting, I think Rich Rod's strategy is becoming pretty clear that he is a big believer in what I would call a developmental program, where he wants to bring in these high school kids who are ranked, maybe 2-star, maybe 3-star, and develop them, into being a better version of themselves, as well as the junior college kids, bringing them in. I think there were 7 or 8 JUCO guys that we got for early signing day. So I think the backbone of the strategy, I think, is just that, getting the best high school players that you can get that you think have potentially been overlooked or underrated by some of these rating services, along with the JUCO players, and then supplement that as you can when the portal opens up on January the 2nd.
Yeah, and he even said in his later press conference there, he talked about that, and he talked about developing. He said, I don't know any program that don't plan on developing players. And he said, that's what we want to do. We want to get them in here, develop them, make them better, get them bigger, stronger, faster, all that, and make them ours. And I think a good thing about that too is, to some degree, I think you develop a little bit of loyalty. If you bring a kid in as a true freshman, and he comes in at 6'3", 260. And by his sophomore year, his redshirt freshman year, he's up to 270, and then he's 290, and he's picked up on his speed, and he's learning technique, and he's learning all these things from the coaching staff, and there's promise in his future. You may have a little bit of loyalty there as well. I was born and bred in this program. I'm not going to jump and leave for another $5,000. So,
Right.
I think there'll be something to be said for that as well, that there'll be a little bit more loyalty. Not with all of them, but I think some of them, will feel like they belong here, and they owe it to the staff and the school, and et cetera, to stick it out. And I think a lot of them will. And so I like the approach, and it's hard. Deion Sanders found out how hard it is to just go into that portal and grab everybody you can get, try to turn that into a team. That's not an easy thing to do. And I think, you've got to have a base, and you got to have core players that you can depend on and is going to be there. And, I think there are, again, a lot of factors going into that we don't see or know and hear, but I like their approach. So, Mickey, one other thing too, I want to, getting off the subject here just for a second, I wanted to mention last week, you and I and Frank talked about the upcoming high school football championships. Now, I don't know if you got a chance to go or not. I know you said you're under the weather a little bit, but man alive, I'm going to tell you what, 3 of those 4 games were absolutely amazing football games. And I don't ever remember in the history of West Virginia high school football, of course, we hadn't always had 4 classes. We haven't always had, playoffs the way it is now. But as far as championship games are concerned, I don't know that we have ever had scenarios like we had down there this past weekend at Laley Field. My goodness, what a championship weekend that was.
It really was, Greg, I'll tell you. And one of the most impressive performances of the whole weekend, I think, was by the quarterback for the Morgantown Mohegans.
Yep.
That kid, personally, I think he accounted for all 28 points of theirs, either running or throwing. And I believe he's just a junior, and WVU has already offered him. So hopefully he could be a hometown hero, huh?
Yeah. Man, he's a good one. I tell you that they jumped out to a 28-7 lead, and Bridgeport come back at 28-21. We're on, I think, maybe the 10, 12-yard line of Morgantown at the end of the game, and time ran out on them, and ended up 28-21 with Morgantown winning. What a game! And then you drop down classes, and you look at the Triple A and Double A, and those were 2 amazing games in their own right. If you looked at, I want to make sure I get the scores right. Frankfort knocked off Bluefield 49-42. That game, if I remember correctly, I think Frankfort was down by a point maybe, or maybe they were tied. I'm not sure. But it was a fourth down, and Frankfurt ran a little halfback pass and hit a guy wide open for a touchdown on the last play of the game, and ended up winning that one 49-42. I don't think they kicked the extra point, so I think they were behind by a point whenever they scored that. So knocked off Bluefield for the championship, and that was, I mean, that was amazing. And you watch it on replay, and as soon as they pitch the ball back, you see the safety for Bluefield come running up, and as soon as you saw that, you're like, oh, here it goes.
That kid was wide open.
Wide open. Yep, walked into the end zone, last play of the game, amazing. And then, of course, Nitro and Princeton, that was a heck of a game as well. Princeton won it 36-35. Did you get a chance to go to that game?
I did not, unfortunately. The weather was too bad, so I didn't go. But I feel so bad for that. That's the one in which the quarterback unintentionally spiked the ball on fourth down, right?
Yeah.
Was that the game that happened in? I think it was, wasn't it?
I think so. I believe that was it.
Yeah,
it was it.
That cost them the victory.
Yeah. The kid spiked it on fourth down, lost track of the downs, and they were down inside the 10, and when that happened, so knocking on the door to score, maybe kick a field goal and win the thing, and I mean, you can't blame that kid. It's a good player too. You can't blame him for that. That kind of thing happens, but I'm sure that'll haunt him for a long time. But it shouldn't. He played a good game, and
he played an excellent game.
If nobody made a mistake, there wouldn't be any reason for officials or anybody else, our coaches or anybody. So everybody makes mistakes, and he just lost track of the downs there and spiked it on fourth down, and end up they lost 36-35. But anyway, hats off to all the teams, and even the Wheeling Central Clay Battelle game. It was pretty entertaining. It was I think it was tied at half, or maybe Wheeling Central might have been up a score, or vice versa, and then Wheeling Central dominated the second half. But it was an entertaining game the first half. I watched the first half of it, and then once it got out of hand the second half, I didn't watch anymore. But all the games were good, and so hats off to all 8 teams that were down there. Man, what a championship weekend it was, and I know Wayne Ryan was very satisfied with the way it turned out. I'm thinking maybe college football, this CFP committee or whatever they're called, maybe they should take a look at the West Virginia model of setting up playoffs and championships, because it looks like we got the right teams.
Yep. There's no question. You had the best. You had the cream of the crop playing each other
No
in every case, I think. And 3 out of the 4 games were very, very competitive. And Wheeling just kind of got away from them there in the second half of that one. But excellent high school football.
Mickey, I want to get your thoughts on this. I don't know how much you pay attention, but with all the problems we have in college sports with the NIL and the transfer portal and all that, as you watch this college football playoff committee thing unfold this past weekend, do you have any thoughts on that as far as the way that all shaped out?
I sure do. Way, way, way too political. There has got to be a better way. There's just got to be a better way to get the best 12 teams in there to play each other. I personally just cannot fathom how in the world Alabama gets in with 3 losses, and they hadn't beaten a top 25 team in over 2 months.
Nope.
And the Miami over Notre Dame, Miami did beat Notre Dame, but it was the first game of the season. And I personally believe the selection should be based upon the teams that are playing their best at the end of the season. And, Notre Dame winning 10 straight after 2 early season losses. I think they should definitely have been in there, particularly over Alabama, and even over James Madison, as well as Tulane. I think Notre Dame would have been a better choice than those two. So the way they're doing it now, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, Greg. And I think it's done based on the appointed committee members making certain that the conferences from the schools that they represent get their fair share of TV revenue. It all comes down to money, unfortunately. What do you think?
Yep. Oh, no question. I think me and you could sit down in a room, and in an hour we could have the best 12 teams, and there'd be the best 12 teams in it. I think it's ridiculous. You mentioned Alabama. This is what the thing that perturbs me the most about this committee and the way they do this stuff is, first of all, like you said, political and money. That's all. Yeah. That's what it boils down to in the story. Excuse me. But they try to justify their picks. And in doing that, they use an argument that supports one team but hurts another team, and what I'm talking about, I was listening to one I'm talking, and it might have been the head man, I can't remember his name, but it was talking about BYU. And he said, well, we took into consideration how bad BYU got beat in their conference championship game. Okay, fair enough. Alabama got drilled in their conference championship game. They had 0 yards. You and I had as many yards as they did rushing. They gained 0 yards on the ground. They got destroyed. But yet, well, we look at the whole body of work. Okay, now wait a minute. Are you looking at the conference championship game, or are you looking at the body of work? What's good for one should be good for the other. And for them to say things like that, it blows my mind. I'm just like, wait a minute, you just said BYU got beat bad in their championship. That's why they didn't get in. That's why you dropped them. Alabama never moved. They stayed in the same spot they were in, and they got destroyed in that championship game. And Notre Dame, I'm not a Notre Dame fan. I don't like Notre Dame. I'm glad they're not in it. However, to be fair, Notre Dame should be in it. And, they're one of the best teams in the country, no question about it. If there was one I felt like could vie for the championship, it would be them. Them, Ohio State, Georgia, those would be the ones that could win the championship. And they deserve to be in. Miami probably deserves to be in too. And, Miami did beat Notre Dame. I get that. Head-to-head should matter. And, that's the other odd thing. Notre Dame, it didn't matter the week prior. The head-to-head didn't matter, but where they had them ranked. And they had Notre Dame ranked ahead of Miami. Well, neither team played. Neither team had a common opponent play, yet Miami jumped over Notre Dame. And they said, well, after all the metrics were looked at and everything, we had to look at the head-to-head. Well, a week ago, none of that changed. They didn't play. None of their common opponents played. So what caused them to put Miami ahead of Notre Dame? It just makes no sense.
I'll tell you what caused it. I'll tell you exactly what caused it.
Yeah.
Duke upsetting Virginia. You can't put Duke in at 7-5, okay?
Yep.
And Virginia, I think, had a strong team this year, but they did lose their conference. Right. So that leaves the ACC without any representation in the college football playoffs. And that's what they cannot allow to happen, is no ACC revenue share, no ACC team representation, in the final 12 teams that are participating in it. And I see our guest just joined us there, so I don't know if you want to bring him in. But
Rick, Greg, let me get what that makes Notre Dame not being in a conference actually hurt them. Financially, I think they're in everything but football, and they don't want to share that revenue. But had they been in the ACC in football, obviously they'd have been the choice. I guess they'd have been the choice. Who knows? Who knows who would have got picked? They might have put somebody else in there, Florida State maybe, since they beat Alabama. So, But anyway, all right, we are tickled to death that Cliff's finally made it, and we know he's been a busy man this evening. Cliff, welcome in, buddy. Good to see you.
How are you guys? Good to see
Uh,
you.
yeah, doing great, doing great. Frank's not with us tonight, as you know. Mickey and I handling things here on this end. We know you've been busy, and I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time by blabbering on here myself. Just tell us what's going on in the world of college football and recruiting. And I know you got your hands full right now.
Yeah, it's a busy time of the year. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
busy time of the year. We just got finished with signing day. We had about 16 guys that we got signed. And then it goes straight into portal. And then I'm sure you guys are aware that Michigan has fired their coach today.
Yep,
So
yep,
that threw everything into which is why I'm late, threw everything into more craziness. So we're coming out of signing day. It was a great signing day. We had kids that went all over the country, from all over the country, and I'm glad that was behind us. I thought I would get a couple days of peace, but that is not happening. So it is what it is.
yeah. I'm sure your phone's been ringing just a little bit here since since the news broke
I
this
knew
evening.
something was going on. We were in the car, and I just hit ding, 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 and
Yeah,
when I look, and I know Coach Moore pretty well, and with everything going on, I actually I hate it for him.
yeah,
He's actually a really good guy. Um, I feel bad for him and his family.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Sad situation.
it
Yeah,
is. But these things happen, and now it seems like they happen almost daily.
yeah, yeah. Not
So,
unusual. Yeah. Yeah, not unusual, not totally unusual. We just got finished. You probably don't want to talk about this, but we just got finished talking about the high school championship games down in Charleston. Man, what a weekend it was down there! Some fantastic games, and
yeah,
your boy involved in one, and man, it was a nail biter right down to the end.
I tell you, it was a great game, and as a football fan, it's the type of game you want to go see. As a Nitro Wildcat, not necessarily what you wanted to watch. And but it was a great game. There was a lot of good plays. There's a lot of good players in that game.
Yeah,
Um, Malachi, that's coming up, to WVU. I feel like he's incredibly underrated. Um, Once he gets into your program and gets like coached up and gets some technique down, he's just got some unbelievable natural skills. And I feel like he was kind of a hidden gem in this class. Um, I think if he would have been, and this is nothing bad, I hope it doesn't come across that way, but he can play with any teams that he would want to. If he had been somewhere like Florida, I think he would have been a real hot recruit. I think WVU is very fortunate to get him, and I think he will be impactful for the program.
that's awesome, awesome. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I've joked on here numerous times that in years past, now not now because everything's covered so well, but in years past, you'd have a guy, you'd say there's a 4-star recruit that WVU's talking to, and he may sign, and then yeah, we got this 4-star recruit, and he would sign with WVU, and then next time you'd see him listed, he'd be a 3-star recruit because he's
Yeah,
from WVU. So
and that's real. That
yeah,
really happens. And there's on the other hand, there's a lot of teams. You'll have a 3-star recruit sign, and they become a 4-star recruit.
right, right,
So, but he is really good. Brad Mosser, he's a phenomenal player. Um, Nitro had a real hard time stopping him. Just got great hands. I think once he gets into a program somewhere and he'll do really well. But there was a lot of good players in the team, and it was a great game. The outcome wasn't what you wanted. I didn't disagree with going for 2 at the end of the game. I thought that was a gutsy call, but Nitro had some injuries, so they felt like they needed to win it at the time they did. And sometimes you get them, and sometimes you don't. And I've been up here with my son for the past 4 months, staying at our farm, and we've had a fantastic time. And the Nitro community really embraced us, and I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Nitro for the rest of my life.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, I agree with you. That I was all about going for two. I felt like that was the right thing to do. You mentioned the young man going to WVU. I wanted to get your thoughts on WVU's recruiting season. Looks like maybe one of the best in their history that they've had up there. And I want to get your thoughts on it and some of the players you think might have an immediate impact. I know one or two for sure that will. But you're a lot more familiar with it than we are, so I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you talk about WVU.
So if you remember, the last time I was on the show, I told you I was hearing WVU's name a lot more than the season before.
Yep.
And so that looks like that panned out for them. So some of the kids that they got, like the tackle, what is
Luke
his
Brown,
name?
I think his name. Luke Brown, is that his name? Maybe.
No, it's not
the
Luke.
kid that was committed to Penn State.
Yes.
They flipped.
Yeah. So he's a fantastic player. I've seen him at a lot of camps. I've watched him in person a lot. He really is as good as about any lineman there is. He would go up against the best defensive line in the country, and he would always hold his own. And I had a player last year, and he was the number one linebacker in the country. And when those two matched up, he held his own with him. Like he's going to be really good. I don't think people really understand how good he is and how athletic he is. So he'll start year one. Mark that down, guarantee that. I don't, as far as I know, skill wise and athletic abilities, I don't think they have anybody like that right now. So he'll be very impactful. The safety was a great pickup. One of the best players in Pennsylvania. I think he's going to come in. I think that he's got enough athletic ability that he'll be able to maybe play on both sides of the ball. So, you know what? And I haven't really. He's the type of athlete that you just want on the field and you want the ball in his hands. And then the running back they picked up, he's 5'11", 230 pounds. So with losing a couple kids that they've may potentially lose to the portal, I think he's another kid that's going to come in and play early. And I think what Coach Rodriguez does is he's still that old school coach, and he wants a lot out of his players. And I think he's found a lot of these guys that are going to translate well to doing that, because they better know what they're in for. And it's a tough brand of football. And if they respond the way that I think they will, I think the recruiting class, you're going to see a lot of freshmen out there next year. And I know they're also going to the portal some too. I expect them to strengthen their line and probably bring in a couple of defensive guys, and they're in a good position to be able to do that. They can promise some starting time to some good players, and they're really supported so well by Pat McAfee when it comes to not only on television, but I know based on what he says financially too. And actually, one of my guys committed on his show this year, and when he brought my name up and told McAfee I was from West Virginia, McAfee, he really liked that and made a big deal out of it. So he not only supports the team, he really supports the state. But if they can, it was an up and down season. There was a couple games that they could have just very easily won. And I think that next year, another year with Coach Rodriguez in charge, I think those are the type of games they will win. And I can see him start to turn around the ship next year. From the get-go, I knew you're not going to see what he's capable of for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
So next year being year two, I think by the end of next year, you'll kind of see what he can bring. The fans will just have to be a little bit patient, but I look for good things coming. And if they can string together a couple recruiting classes like that, that's that's a big deal, you know. And really, when you look at the Big 12, like Colorado's not bringing in the class that they did before. You got Texas Tech; they're kind of an outlier who's unbelievably funded. But besides them, and I guess BYU, like WVU is up there with anybody in the conference, and that's the point of college football now. Really, is to win your conference so that you can get in the playoffs. And I heard you guys talking the playoffs, and that's been a crazy thing. But once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah, Mickey and I were talking before you got here about WVU's class, and we were looking at Frank had put together a graphic for us with the ranking, the national ranking, the conference ranking, and then the amount of average NIL money, and of course ours was, Texas Tech was 5 times what ours was, but I mentioned to Mickey that I felt like sometimes that's looked at maybe not in the correct way, in that you look at an average amount. If your average amount is 25,000 as opposed to 100,000, but you got a quarterback you're giving $1 million to, that average then gets thinned out middle ways down. So I don't know how much that I mean, I know the money plays a role, but I think it's a misconception about how big a role. I mean, I just don't know that people are going out and buying. Not, I mean, some are obviously going out and just buying a bunch of players, And I
Yeah.
just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, you still only play 22 guys,
Right.
really. And so when you look at how that money's spent, like if you've got a lot of money in your depth, that can make a difference too. But it's football. So, and in football, as long as you've got a couple key pieces, you can win a ball game. So, um, I really think that the way, WVU had to bring in a lot of guys. Like they needed a lot of kids. Well, they accomplished that. What they bring in 45 or 46 kids. So that to me is more impactful for them than another team bringing in 25 kids, because they almost needed to really retool their whole roster. And they've been able to do that, and they'll go get more pieces, like I said, in the portal. Now, the money does make a difference. And the more money you've got, the better players you can get. But like I said, you still got to put on a helmet. You still got to go out there and play. And as long as you get good quarterback play, number one is good. As long as you can protect the quarterback, that's a big deal. They were able to bring in some guys to do that. Like the other kid that they brought in out of Ohio, Rhett is his name. I worked with him some. I think he's going to be a good player. And then you got to have somebody to rush the quarterback and to put pressure. And so, you know, that's something that they can concentrate on more too. But for where they've been the past, 20 years, like the classes they used to get, I mean, this is about as good as they were getting back then. I mean, you had some outliers like Noel Devine and different kids, but when you look at a class as a whole, I think on Rivals, they were 20th in the country, and maybe 24/7, they were maybe 25. I might be off a number or two, but I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That puts you in a position to be able to make the playoffs. And maybe the days of wanting to go for a national championship, maybe that is a little tougher. But I think the goal now is to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, because once you do that, you're in the mix, and anybody can do anything. You saw it a couple of years ago with TCU. I know that was a reduced in number playoff, but the main thing now, get to the playoffs. And I think if they can put together a couple classes like this in the Big 12, they are positioning themselves very well to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Mickey, you want to jump in? I don't want to exclude you. If you want to jump in there and talk to Cliff a minute.
Hey, Cliff. I just had a couple of questions. I'd like to get your comments on the chart that we were looking at before you came on. Was comparing NIL money between 5 teams in the Big 12, and There it is. West Virginia is sitting there with an these are our averages, but they're $21,000 per player or so, and Texas Tech is 5 times that amount, and yet West Virginia out recruits them in terms of early signing day at least. And my explanation for that, and you're the perfect guy to comment on this, I think, is I know when I was recruited way back when, the fact that I had an opportunity to play under a Jim Carlin and a Bobby Bowden, I think how much emphasis do you and you should know, do the kids put on the integrity of the coach, the track record of the coach, what they think the coach can do for their development as compared to the NIL dollars? I mean, that's how you make up for the money gap, I would think. Would you agree with that, or what
Well,
do you
yeah,
think?
it depends on what their priority is. So some kids just chase the money, and some kids look for fit. Well, with my kids, what I look for is fit, and then try to get deals equal. So if there's 3, 4 teams they're deciding from, then we've identified that those teams fit that player's ability, and the coaching style fits, and the room fits. Because when you look at this now, it is a business, and you want to know who's in your room that you're going to, and that's the coach, and that's the players around you. So you start looking at all that. So a kid may come to, let's say that a Texas Tech room is full, right? And it's got all these kids they paid all this money to. Well, if you look at a school that maybe is not paying, $100,000 per kid, their room may not be as full, and you may be willing to take a little bit less money to go to that school because you can get on the field sooner and show what you're able to do. But 100%, the most important thing right now is finding the right fit more than anything. And so that's what these kids need to be looking at, not the money, because I know I've seen a lot of kids that, just take the money and then they don't get on the field. They get pushed to the back, and you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Good
um,
point.
I, I think the fit is the big part. And so if you're identifying your needs and you're meeting those needs, the money kind of gets diluted, because if you've got, how many kids did Texas Tech sign? Like 25?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yep.
they probably spent 25, $30 million. So when you have a lot of money to spend, you spend it more freely. So you may not be getting as big a bang for your buck either, you know? So that's one
Gotcha.
thing that I see with some of these teams too, is they almost get into like a feeding frenzy where they want guys, and so they're willing to overpay. So, but if you can promise a kid playing time, that still makes up for some money. Just like, used to, a kid might go to a WVU because he'd get on the field quicker when before the money was such a big thing. Well, that still plays a part. So as long as you're meeting your needs, and looking at the class, I looked at it yesterday that W signed, I feel like they did a good job of meeting their needs. So they've got a
Yeah.
lot more talent on the roster than they did, a week ago.
Kind of coming into this year. The other item I wanted to see if you had any insight on. I live here in Charleston, and I follow Nitro pretty closely this year. And I was really, really impressed with that big offensive lineman that they had. I think his name was DeRay. That may not be
Dayron
right, but he
Parks.
ended up
Yep.
Dayron Park. Thank you. He ended up going to North Carolina, I believe, right? Do you have
Yeah.
any insight into why a homegrown product that would have a chance to represent his state, his city, Nitro, up in Morgantown, you know, why does a kid make a decision to go somewhere like North Carolina instead of staying home?
Uh, so I represent him.
Oh, you
Um,
do? Okay.
yeah, he's one of my 16 that signed. Um, I'm gonna be careful with what I say on that one.
Well, let's not. Yeah, you don't have to talk about him
Yeah.
specifically,
So
but can you comment on just generally, why would a kid choose to go out of state when he'd have a chance to stay in state and be a hometown hero. Is it NIL money in the majority of instances, do you think? Or again, as you say, some kids, what's that?
I'll say this. North Carolina came on strong. As you know, he was committed to Florida State, and Herb Hand, who I love, is at Florida State, and so that was a hard decision for him. Very hard decision for him to decommit from Florida State and go to North Carolina. We spent 2 days down there with Coach Belichick, and he did a phenomenal job recruiting him. And you want to feel wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kind of go with that.
Okay. Yeah, lastly, I heard that Belichick's girlfriend was entering the transfer portal after his season. Any truth to that?
You got me in a tough spot. I actually I talked to those guys a lot, so I don't know.
Joshing.
I haven't heard it. The news of the day is Michigan's coach, so we'll stick with that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and the news of yesterday, I did want to bring up before we end the show here, Steve Slayton's induction into the Hall of Fame yesterday. It was just something for all of us to be very proud of as West Virginians.
Well, he was a phenomenal player, and when he played there with Pat White, I don't know how many times. It's the only time, and I've watched over the past. I'm about 50 years old, and so for the past 40 years, I've paid real close attention to college football, and that team is one of the only teams I've ever seen on 3rd and 19 run the ball and go for 80 yards for a touchdown.
Yep.
Like, it was an amazing time. Pat White and Steve Slayton are two of the best players that's ever played college football, and it was an honor that's very well deserved. Very well deserved.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir.
Up to Pittsburgh, watch West Virginia play Pitt when Pat White and Slayton played, and we were down. Of course, when you go to a game in Pittsburgh for Pitt, there's nobody there, so you can go sit wherever you want to sit. So we were sitting right down on the field and watching them warm up. Me and my brother-in-law were talking just how fast they were. I'm like, just look at them run compared to everybody else. Well, then the game starts, and there were two separate occasions, once with Pat White, once with Steve Slayton. And I remember Slayton's particularly well because he come around the end, and he ran around the right end, and he made a move on a guy and took off. And it was just like every step he got further away from the defensive guy chasing the guy. It was amazing to watch, and just the speed that those guys had. Pat White was the same way. So, yeah, that's what Cliff said. Two of the best to ever play college football, no question about it. Also, Mickey, congratulations. You made Cliff blush. His face turned red. So that's the first time we've, in the 3 appearances, first time we've had that. So that's a good job, Mickey. Hey, what I asked. Go ahead, Mick.
I was living in Atlanta when WVU beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and during that era. And let me tell you, it was clear even in pregame warmups. They're playing an SEC championship caliber team, but you could tell before the game even started that West Virginia just had a faster, more aggressive team, and did my heart good again being a resident in the Atlanta area. They played the Sugar Bowl in Atlanta that year because of the hurricane. And Mountaineers beating the Bulldogs in that Sugar Bowl game is one of my greatest memories as a Mountaineer.
Yeah, and Mickey, one other side note to that, I don't remember who told me this, but they were at the game. They said later on that night they were in the hotel, happened to be the same hotel that the Georgia football team was staying in, and he said he was on the elevator with a couple of players, and they got to talking about the game, and one of the guys was a defensive lineman. He said, there's a lot of speed in the SEC. He said, but we've never seen speed like that. He said, that was unbelievable. He said, we didn't realize how fast they were. So again, not to be looked over. Cliff, before you go, I want to get at this question, and I know I asked you this the last time you were on. Where do you see all this heading? I mean, I know in your position, I understand, where you're coming from. Uh, as the fans, from fans' perspective, and people who like college football, watching their teams every year, and this year no different, trying to figure out who exactly is the player on your team, what's his name, and people jumping back and forth, getting in the portal, the money taking a bigger role in all this. Where do you see all this heading? Do you see anything coming? That would, maybe go kind of like the NFL model, where there's, maybe a cap put on the amount of money that can be spent, or you do away with these conferences and you have divisions, and to try to keep the money even and all that sort of thing. What's your thoughts? And you're involved in it. What's going on. What's your thoughts on how it's going to pan out?
So next year there is more of a cap coming. And so these teams are only going to be able to spend a certain amount. And it's like before they could guarantee all this NIL money. So next year, the rev share is capped. So most teams probably next year are going to legally spend between 15 and $19 million on their roster. Now you're still going to have schools that's going to figure out how to spend 25, $30 million. And I say, so there's some of the smartest people in the country that are running these major colleges. So every time they come up with a new rule, there's always ways to kind of get around it.
Sure.
But what they're going to do, they are going to try to cap them. Now, and if they do that, what we have to watch to see, some of these conferences like the Big Ten and the SEC, and you've heard me say this before, they have a lot of money. So the thing that's going to determine how this all goes is if those schools still want to be involved with everybody, because they're going to have the option to form a super league. Now, are they going to do that? I don't know. I think if they do that, that'll be about 2030 is when that's going to happen. So we're about 4 or 5 years away from that. I don't hear quite as much about it right now as I did earlier in the year, because one thing that happened with this cap coming, everybody kind of had to change their NIL and how they were doing it to try to stay under the cap. But like, there are a lot of teams carrying a 25 to low $30 million roster. So they got to figure out how to do that. And if they decide to be cooperative, I think that would be the best thing for college football altogether, because it's going to be competitive. Like the NFL is really designed to go about 50-50. You never know who's going to win. So that's why a lot of people watch it. So if they don't put some guardrails on it, like what Texas Tech did this year, going and spending all that money. Well, when you spend all that money, then that's when, you have these margins of victory of 60 points.
Right.
So that's not good TV. So the TV contracts don't want to see one or two teams doing that all the time.
Right.
So what I hope is, it would be great if everybody would, cooperate. Now, as a fan, I want to see everybody cooperate. As a profession, I don't want to see salary caps.
Right.
But for college football, I think it's probably better if you do see salary caps, because look at all these coaches. I mean, these are not small schools that are firing their coaches all the time. And one of the reasons they do that is because when these boosters give all this money, they want immediate return on investment. And it's not like the old days, like Coach Franklin at Penn State. Him getting fired is crazy.
Yep.
So, and now they got a good coach. I think Coach Campbell's a good coach. But is it worth spending whatever, $60 million and getting rid of that staff and bringing him in, or 80 million, whatever it is. Like, is that going to make that much of a difference? And it went on so long. Like, is that who they intended to get? And
Yeah.
so they got to get guardrails on it, and they have to try to get everybody to play along with it. Now, you're always going to have, the SEC and the Big Ten's always going to be loaded, but they always have been.
Yeah.
So as long as it doesn't get out of control, it'll be fine. If they don't get it under control, it could cannibalize itself.
Yeah, and I think you see some evidence of that happening, and like with the coaches and that sort of thing. So yeah, and the boosters having all this input is going to be a problem for a lot of people. Putting all the money in, they obviously want to say and they want to return. And so yeah, these coaches, tough. Like I said earlier, I'm glad I don't coach. I just I don't believe I could handle all this, just too much. Cliff, tell you what, buddy, it has been, I hate that the time's running out on us. Darren's got to get out of here. It has been so interesting listening to you. We'd love to get you on, or we can have you on for the whole show.
Well, I'm sorry it was such a delay today.
That's all right. Hey,
next time we'll do it.
I understand. We'll get you back after the portal gets opened up. We'll see where that's headed. We'll get you back then. I could sit and talk to you for 2 or 3 hours and listen and find out whatever all's going on from the inside out. It's awful interesting to hear the beef.
Well, I'll say this: it is very interesting times. And last year when we were doing these shows, I can't say that WVU was trending up, but I can see that they're trending up now. So what I would suggest is people have patience. Let him get his players in place and give him another year. And then year 3, that's when you can start to be critical if it's not going correct. So
that's right. Yeah. See where it's at. All right. Thank you so much. But I know we got, I'm sure you're still busy right now. You got a lot going on, and we're going to let you get out of here and take care of your business. We appreciate you again squeezing us in and enlightening us on some of this stuff. So interesting to hear. So we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. You guys have a good evening.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Cliff.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you, Mick.
Bye-bye. So here you go, Frank, or Mickey. It's he's also a wealth of information. It's always so much fun to listen to. You just hate that time runs out so fast because you can sit and listen to it for an hour talking about this stuff. Yeah. It's neat to hear from the inside out.
2.5, 3 hour show with him easily.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Definitely have to get him back on
wealth of knowledge.
Portal time.
Yeah, after the portal. After the portal will be great. Maybe we can get him back.
Yep, because he'll have players involved in that as well, and I'm sure he'll be directly involved too, so we could get some insight on that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm rushing a little bit. I know Darren's got to get out of here. He got some business to tend to, so we're going to sign her off here. We're about 8:35, so not quite an hour and 15, pretty close. We look forward to coming to you next week. You can see the graphic that has been put up there. A couple of the gurus that follow the recruiting, Mickey, Mark, and Mark Parsons, of course, and Randy Flincham, who's really involved in watching the recruiting and seeing what all's going on. I know they're excited and they'll have a lot to talk about. We'll get those 2 guys in here next week and have some fun with them. That'll be a good time and a good show. So I hope people will tune in and join it. Mickey, appreciate you filling in the gap tonight, man. Did a great job as always.
Well, thank you, Greg. You as well. Randy and I were teammates together at WVU, so I really look forward to having him on next week.
Yeah, you'll have some fun. You'll have some fun with that. And again,
I'll have some good fun with him. No question.
Oh, yeah. About it. See if you can make him blush like you did Cliff.
Apologize for that. That wasn't my
I don't know. That's pretty good. I haven't heard her in the transfer portal. Hey, after the way their season started, I'm surprised Belichick didn't get in the portal.
I think
he don't win the games next year. He'll be in the portal. All right, that's cool. Hey. All right, appreciate everybody for tuning in the Mountaineer Locker Room then and now here on the New River Network. Boys College Football for Mickey Plumley and Darren behind the scenes. I'm Greg Christ. Appreciate you watching. We look forward to coming to you again next Wednesday night right here on the same bat time and the same bat channel. Good night, everybody.